Hello, and thank you for volunteering to serve as an abstract reviewer and for taking the time to watch this video prior to beginning your review of abstracts. As of 2019, IDEC is using a review site called Process. So the overall goal of this session is to help previous and new reviewers feel comfortable with the review process by providing pertinent information. To do so, this presentation will cover the timeline for the review process and the review process, including username and password, assignments, disqualification and recusal, rubric sections, accessing rubrics, rubric details, and completing a review. This is an outline schedule of the review process, but you will receive exact dates from the IDEC Abstract Review Coordinator. The process begins after the IDEC Abstract Submission deadline. All submissions receive a preliminary check by the Abstract Review Coordinators for repeat presentations or presentations that were submitted in multiple formats, then are assigned to individual reviewers at the beginning of October, at which point you may begin reviewing. Near the end of October, reviewers will receive a reminder to complete their reviews by the early November deadline. Any abstracts that require a third review, via a process that will be discussed later in this presentation, will be assigned in mid-November. All abstract reviews will be complete by early December. So, to begin the process, you will receive email notification from IDEC with instructions for accessing your review assignments. Abstracts will be available for your review using the same online portal and login information that was used for submitting abstracts. If you did not submit an abstract, you can follow the instructions to create a new account. Once logged in, you will notice a drop-down list to select the review type. The number of abstracts each reviewer will receive will depend on the number of abstracts that have been submitted and the total number of volunteers. Each abstract submission will initially be assigned to 2 reviewers, and the abstract review coordinators will try to assign abstracts related to areas of expertise identified. Then, to begin reviewing an abstract, simply click on or select one in your assignments column. However, before you begin the review process, we recommend and ask that you check for information in the submission that could disqualify it or require it to be reassigned to another reviewer. The most common of these is identifying information. Identifying information consists of any personal data that could be used to determine an individual's identity. For instance, authors often forget to remove faculty names or the name of a university from syllabi, assignments, and student work. Checking for this in the title and appendix prior to review of abstract content could save you and the other assigned reviewer time. If you do notice identifying information, it is important that you do not complete the review, but rather close the review session and send an email to the IDEC Abstract Coordinator, indicating the abstract number and the fact that the submission included identifying information. The submission will be disqualified, and IDEC will send an email to the submitter as well as track the data. As previously mentioned, IDEC will conduct a preliminary check for repeat presentations or presentations that were submitted in multiple formats. However, we might miss some. So we ask that if you recognize an abstract as having been presented at a prior conference or notice that it was submitted in multiple presentation formats, like an SOTL presentation as well as a poster, that you close the session and email the IDEC Abstract Review Coordinator. IDEC will contact the submitter indicating that the submission was disqualified and also track this data. Lastly, if you begin reviewing an abstract and realize that you know the author, eliminating the possibility for an unbiased blind review, please close out of the session and email the IDEC Abstract Coordinator. Such a submission will not be disqualified, but it will be reassigned to another reviewer. Once these preliminary checks are complete, the abstract is ready for review and scoring. Under each main category, SOTL, Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, and SODR, Scholarship of Design Research, there are 3 submission types: presentation, panel, and poster. You will notice that sections for each submission type, like SODR presentation and SODR poster, are similar, but an SODR presentation is evaluated for significance of presentation, whereas an SODR poster is instead evaluated for engagement. We will discuss each section in more detail, but it is also important to note that while specific, these categories and presentation types are meant to foster a variety of methods and outcomes. To aid in the review process and an effort to eliminate disparities amongst scorers, rubrics have been created for each submission type, so please be sure you are using the right one. You will be provided with a copy of each, but they are also available at the link at the top of the main screen. We will now quickly cover each submission type and its sections, so feel free to pause the video if you need more time for review. However, you will also receive this information in a document from the IDEC Abstract Coordinator. The SOTL presentation and the SOTL panel are scored using the same rubric. On this slide, you will note the sections being scored as well as the rubric information provided by IDEC at the time of the abstract submission. However, the rubrics you will use for scoring identify qualifiers along a 0 to 5 Likert scale. The criteria for poster submission is very similar to a presentation or panel. However, there are minor differences which are highlighted in red. Since a poster is intended as an outlet to support ideas or outcomes that haven't fully developed, the work may be in progress and can be preliminary. Also, rather than significance of a presentation, the rubric for a poster submission looks for level of potential engagement through visual communication. This does not mean the submission should include a fully developed poster, but the appendix should give a sense of what the final poster may be. The SODR presentation and the SODR panel are similar to SOTL, but differ slightly in the section and qualifiers. Also similar to the SOTL poster criteria, the SODR poster may present work that is in progress and should be reviewed for the level of visual engagement. When you are ready to score an abstract according to each of the sections just discussed, you will find a drop-down Likert scale that asks for a rating of between 0 as the lowest and 5 as the highest. Please reference the rubrics provided to determine your scores. A 0 should only be given in rare circumstances, like when a section is completely missing. If you provide a 0, it must be accompanied by comments as to the reasoning for that score. Another new component to the review process is the request for reviewer recommendation. This is not about personal preference, but should consider the totality of the idea and proposal as well as the composite score of the abstract. Based on this comprehensive assessment, you are asked to indicate whether you would recommend for oral presentation, recommend for poster presentation, or do not recommend acceptance for the conference. While your recommendation will not be the sole determinant of a proposal's acceptance, if there are conflicting recommendations amongst the initial 2 reviewers, the proposal will be assigned to another reviewer for a 3rd review. This also does not alleviate the importance of the overall abstract score, because that information helps determine the final conference cutoff. Last, but certainly not least, feedback may seem obvious to you as the reviewer, but is probably not obvious to the authors, especially when this could be their first submission. All comments are shared with the author or authors upon notification of whether their abstracts were accepted or rejected for the conference. The following slide contains some strategies for providing comments, and while we will not discuss these in detail, please feel free to use them as a reference. Consider these as a starting point. Point out inconsistencies. Did some of the sections not align, or was there information missing? Use the rubric categories as prompts. You took the time to use the rubrics as a tool for review, so allow it to help you articulate your thoughts and why you gave the score you did. Areas for improvement. What and how could the authors improve the abstract for later submission? As a recap, you will receive your login credentials to begin review of your assigned abstracts near the beginning of October. Your review of assigned abstracts must be complete by November 4th. Email the IDEC abstract coordinator as soon as possible if you notice identifying information, an abstract that has been presented before, one submitted in multiple formats, or if there's a conflict of interest. Be sure to use the correct rubric for the abstract submission type and include appropriate and useful comments. Contact the IDEC Abstract Review Coordinator or the IDEC Scholarship Collaborative Coordinator with any questions. And thank you again for your service. The review process is one of the most critical aspects in the development of a discipline's body of knowledge and is incumbent on highly qualified scholars like you to evaluate research and teaching.